Ratatouille, a film that threw a lovable wee flufflebum of a food prodigy, a rat named Remy, born into the body of the wrong species, captured the hearts and taste buds of children and adults alike who saw this film back in 2007 and again ever since. Sometimes it feels like the most loved Pixar film of all time, with people still quoting and referencing it over a decade later. Ratatouille shares the story of pure talent-defying discrimination and a message that, like the famous reputation-saving dish served at the conclusion of the film, it is not the looks nor preconceived ideas about food, creators nor individuals which matter. It's rather what's on the inside that counts. Ratatouille being a peasant dish sums up the point of the entire film, being that the idea people will have about certain things and individuals are not what truly matter. Rather, you are the only person who carries your own truth, and until others experience that, it's not for them to judge. As Ego says, it's not that anyone can become a great artist,
but a great artist can come from anywhere.
Speaking of Ego, the physicalization, one-liners and demeanour of this character is, for me at least, a representation of the pinnacle of Pixar's character development. The line, "I don't like food, I love it. If I don't like it, I don't swallow," is genius, and the way this stubborn, judgmental, bored and sour character has the most exciting and yet actually believable character art of the entire film is what makes Ratatouille so marvellous. The dish Ratatouille is what unlocks a 180 personality switch in him and pulls the narrative to a tight and satisfying finish, which satisfies audiences in a refreshing and non-predictable manner. But even this lanky, angular character favourite of mine is not a flawless creation. The character is an English food critic living in Paris, yet the Ratatouille-triggered flashback takes him to his seemingly French childhood where his mother is serving him a bowl of this utterly French Parisian dish. I understand this could be explained away in a number of ways, and I'm not wishing to poke holes in this much-loved film too much. But that does lead me to stress how this film, like most, is not one big warm fuzzy hot water bottle that is an utter comfort in all respects. Ratatouille once again follows a typical goal-orientated, endlessly brave male character who is portrayed as being someone who doesn't quite fit into the world in which he grew up in. Traits which are problematic for the protagonist in the story world, but once again convey to the viewer that having singular visions and unremitting determination to get oneself to achieve them are what are most important in life. Remy's brother Emile fills the Hollywood best friend sidekick role to a T, one that unfortunately plagues storylines rather all too often. Being this fatter, dumber stereotype, Emile is seen to regularly lack a mind of his own, risking his safety while following the agenda of the braver and suggested smarter main character. There is only one named female character who has lines and a juicy amount of screen time in the film. And while Colette is a wonderfully badass character, painted as one of the best human chefs in Gustav's kitchen, she never has a conversation with another female character full stop, let alone regarding anything other than a male character, making this film fail momentously in the Bechdel test. Colette also takes part in a kinda concerning scene in which at one point creeped out by Linguini and having pepper spray on hand, the next she's being kissed by him as Remy steers Linguini towards her, and she seems to be utterly enjoying it. I don't think I need to spend too much time on fleshing out this bizarre moment, only that it's a little eye-roll inducing as it perpetuates the idea that overt displays of physical intimacy by men will win over even the toughest, sassiest of women. Furthermore, the film fails to explain how a colony of American voice rats happened to dwell in the roof of an old lady living in the countryside of France. Anywho, I'll leave my frustrations of the film there and get back to the cherish-worthy elements of this classic. One of the reasons this film is so brilliant is what it teaches the average viewer about food. Through Remy's enthusiasm for the art, audiences are pulled into the love of cooking, learning lessons like you should always keep your station clear, and that the mark of a phenomenal loaf of bread is ensuring you keep your ears open for a symphony of crackle. Colette reminds us that false modesty is just another way to lie. And with that we can learn that Colette delivers most of the lessons in the film, so perhaps the weight of this character does make up for her lack of female company. Colette's presence in the male-dominated kitchen emphasises that when given a voice, women will often have the most insightful and detail-driven knowledge to share. The film emphasises that the truth sounds insane sometimes, and that in the end, it's best for everyone to share it. Remy is a guy wanting to follow his dream and trying to balance between two worlds which he both feels at home in. The difficulties in matters of the head and heart in following your dreams are what Ratatouille is about, and perhaps what makes this film so freaking special, because it depicts this in such a far-fetched yet unlikely friendship, unlikely hero-driven way. Anytime animated food comes into view in this film is a wonderful treat, and the teamwork-driven rats running the kitchen montage at the terminal of the film is kind of the best smile-inducing part of the whole thing. Something about rats being sanitized in an industrial dishwasher has me laughing every time. The closing message in the film is the most powerful, as Igor offers a few words of wisdom on judgment. He puts forward that it's not at all beneficial on one's own, and that those who offer it should never forget that they are in a position of complete privilege. Like food critics, those who offer judgment for a living should use that power wisely, and realise that they have a responsibility to encourage the creative talents of those who put themselves on the line for others to critique. It's my favourite message from the film, as it reminds us that judgment for the sake of attention, such which saturates a platform like YouTube, is not helpful nor constructive as a phenomenon on its own. For a film largely set in a kitchen, there are not too many actual dishes in this film, honey bunches, but what there is I have veganised, and pretty deliciously too, I think you might agree. I have talked about this film for far long enough, longer than usual, so I will leave it there and jump right into sharing these recipes with you in Ratatouille, but vegan. We're doing Ratatouille! Yay, finally, right? So I made 2 recipes from the film. The first is the soup that Remy makes, or that he fixes from Linguini's soup experimenting disaster. I've kind of just guessed that it was a potato and leek because it looks like Remy whacks in like 4 little half moons of leek. Like, that would make a difference. Anyway, this one's really flavour packed, and I do think it's like next level soup worthy. So you want to start by sauteing onion, garlic and leek, then you add your potatoes, and then I added vegan chicken stock to sort of give it a bit more oomph instead of just vegetable stock. Cover and let boil until the potatoes cook, then add herbs like dried mixed herbs, nutritional yeast, miso paste, coconut sugar, and then for creaminess, coconut cream and unsweetened soy milk, and that sort of very much acts as like a cream dairy element replacer. And soups can just be like bland baby food for adults that just tastes like runny mash. That's the experience I've had a lot of times, and I don't know, it's got to be next level. That's if it's a smooth soup, that is, and this is next level. I served it with croutons, some chopped parsley, and that's just some drizzles of unsweetened soy milk, and for a creamy look effect, that's what I was going for. It's so flavour packed, the miso and nutritional yeast and everything, just, yeah, next level, honey bunches. Okay, talking about next level, I made the ratatouille, and yes, it is actually next level. You are right, I've made one before, but this is like proper stuff. Feed this to the kings and queens in your life. It does have potato in it, so you want to cook potatoes until they're near cooked. And then meanwhile, it has a it has a white sauce amongst all that veg, or below it, so you want to saute onion and garlic in a little oil. Then you've seen me make a white sauce many times, so you add some flour, gluten-free or plain, veg stock powder, stir until that forms a roux, and then add unsweetened soy milk in increments, switch into a whisk, and yeah, when it comes smooth, you want to whisk for a bit more until it thickens. Then take it off the heat and add the finishing elementes, including some salt, some pepper, and a little bit of coconut cream, which I found, if you live in Australia, the Macro brand of coconut cream is actually way better than the coconut milk. It has like 4/5 of hard coconut cream in there that you could whip, definitely, if you chilled it for a while. And also nutmeg went into that. So set that aside, and then for our veg, so zucchini, eggplant, and I used some squash, but if you had like a yellow zucchini, that would work too. And I used the sort of mandolin attachment in a food processor, but a mandolin or a knife would work. And you want to do the potatoes too, and yeah, choose an eggplant that's quite thin in the body. It's quite slender, so then everything's similar radius, diameter, circumference, all that. Then obviously ratatouille usually has capsicum in it too, so just cut thin strips and I'll show you how you'll create effect that looks like they're, I don't know, discs of capsicum. So in your dish, add some olive oil, a tin of, like, I use crushed tomatoes, but any sort would work, some dried mixed herbs and some parsley. Mix that around, then create a sort of well in the center and add your roux. I made a double, but the recipe on my blog is just for the right amount of roux, so
Pour that in, ripple it around, and it will look like a lot of liquid, but you want it to be quite liquidy. Then add like stacks of vegetables. I just made like little stacks in my hand. I didn't spend heaps of time on it. I just yeah, made them in my hand before putting in the dish, because you would kind of go insane if you did them one at a time. Then I put the capsicum, shoved that in the top to make it look like it was stacked, drizzled it with olive oil, balsamic, salt and pepper, topped it with foil. Of course I used baking paper in the film, I just didn't have it. And then you cook it for about an hour with the baking paper, and then pop it in the oven for another 20 minutes without. And that's it. You need to cover it with something so the colour of the veg doesn't sort of fade away and dwindle, wither away on the vine. But hello, look at it, it's so good. The bechamel tomatoey base is heaven, and serve this with crusty bread and all your friends and fam will go nuts. So thanks for letting me show you how I made the recipes from Ratatouille, honey bunches. It was a dream. You're right, best movie to veganize the food from.
It was a treat spending time with this film again and making these recipes for you, honey bunches. Many of you asked for this video, so here it is. I don't actually make videos based on recommendations all that often, because there has to be a sort of shared passion on the subject matter, otherwise the video will probably just be a bit blah, because it's not me who has the energy and zeal to make it in the end, it's you. But woo! We overlapped on this one, honey bunches, and there have been many more suggestions which I have connected with and I'm getting round to, I promise. Thank you so much for watching, honey bunches. Sending much love to you in your corner of the world. I will see you in the comments between now and the next video, which will be super soon. So thanks for watching again, honey bunches. Bye!